Popular internet icon Andrew Tate is vocal about politics, religion, and the like. Very recently, Tate has confirmed his conversion to Islam after recognizing the strength of Islamic belief and its ability to improve the lives of human beings. At the same time, Tate has often criticized Christianity, claiming that the faith is no longer strong and acted out in the West. In this video, we're going to look at Tate's recent appearance on Mohammad Hijab's show and attempt to unpack his beliefs about Christianity. While Tate makes some fair claims about the nature of Christianity, he seems to be wrong on a lot of Christian theology. I hope you enjoyed this video and you're watching All Things Humanities.
Religion on earth. I feel like there's no other religion. People say to me, why did you convert? And I said, I don't really feel it as a conversion. It's almost like I knew God was real and now I've become religious. And they say, well, you were religious before. I was like, religious before how? Christian? What does Christian mean? Like, who's not a Christian? You go to Christian nations and everyone says they're a Christian. Look how they live their lives. Go into the average church. Is anyone actually fearful of God? Anybody? No. The girls are out on Saturday night drinking and then they turn up to church because their parents made them. Like, there's no substance to the religion. And also, Islam very closely reflects my personal beliefs. Through my personal life, I've learned that if you don't have standards and you're not a strong person who's prepared to defend his ideas, you will be crushed. Yes. And we look at most religions in the world today, which are not prepared to defend their ideas. What's happened to them? They're just getting crushed. And now we have Christianity as an idea, which has basically said, well, we can't set any firm rules because everyone will just quit. So instead, let's make it so easy to be a Christian that nobody has to put any effort in, and then accept everybody no matter what, and hopefully we can keep the church doors open. That's not God to me, you know? God to me is strong. God to me is something to be feared. God to me is someone that people are afraid to mock. God to me is someone that you have to go out of your way to prove something to. God to me has red lines. Like, God to me represents the Islamic faith. The Christian God to me, I don't see God. I can't explain. I don't see anything there. So to me, it was the only logical choice in the end.
Tate seems to ask the rhetorical question of what does Christian mean and who's a Christian? He's getting to the point that Christianity has somewhat been watered down in secular culture, and claiming to be a Christian is difficult to do so in 2022. I think Tate is wrong to say that there is no substance to Christianity, given that the church still underpins a lot of Western morality. I take his point that Western culture has steered away from Christian teaching, but the church is still somewhat present in 2022. It's worth noting that this is something that frustrated the famous Friedrich Nietzsche, claiming that very few Christians imitated Christ. For example, a lot of Christians were not being compassionate, they weren't spreading love, and they weren't turning the other cheek. Instead, many feel that Christians are attending church on Sundays but are failing to make the correct spiritual changes in their lives. This is significant since figures like Jordan Peterson have become so prominent, sharing the value of the Christian message through his understanding of optimal psychological health. Tate also seems to think that Christians are no longer attending church, and this is somewhat true given the demographics of Christianity are in decline globally, and I'd suggest watching this video on why Christianity is facing this decline in the West. Tate also seems to claim that girls are drinking too much and turning up to church, suggesting that they aren't struggling to imitate Jesus and live a life according to the divine. Perhaps Tate has experienced this, and it is a frustration of contemporary Western culture. Even at my own experience, I've noticed the same thing. However, of course, this can't be said about all Christians who attend church. I think he makes a comparison to Islamic culture, where such behavior is not tolerated at all. But once again, to say that there is no substance to the religion is unfair, given the value of Christian ethical teaching. I think this is where Tate gets Christianity wrong, given that Christianity places emphasis on the individual to spiritually transform and align with Christ. Christianity does not advocate punishments in the same way Islam does for failing to uphold core beliefs. The whole point of Christianity is not for the church or a religious authority to command piety and adherence, but rather for individuals to recognize the truth of a moral life and decide to align with those principles. For Christianity, if you decide not to align with Christ's teachings, you will suffer internally and, in theory, burn in hell. Hell can be understood as a psychological or spiritual state that is chaotic and associated with suffering. Tate seems to be saying that Muslims are stricter in their faith than Christians, for they strongly adhere to the Quran and Islamic doctrine. While Tate does have a point that Secularization and the Age of Enlightenment has watered down traditional Christian beliefs. For example, the idea that the Eucharist is no longer treated as the literal body and blood of Christ. However, this can be more complicated than what Tate says, given that theological understandings change over time as new cultures, experiences, and contexts emerge. For example, evolution was not originally compatible with Christianity, but now in a lot of Protestant and Catholic theology, it's legitimate and it aligns with Christian belief in creation. I think Tate's conversion to Islam is incredibly interesting, especially considering that we are living in the secular age. However, when it comes to Christianity, Tate seems to skip the very nature of Christian spirituality, where individuals choose voluntarily to follow the teachings of Christ. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing and liking the video. It's free and you can always change your mind.